Hello, welcome to Paint by Blunders. Today we are looking at the Mobius 0.2 from Gaahleri. Like I said, we are looking at the lovely airbrush from Gaahleri. I, on top of it, purchased this little stand, which is, don't do it because I find myself spinning this thing way more than I should. So let's get into some priming. I'm going to be using Vallejo's Mecha Primer with a little bit of Airbrush Medium. I always use this stuff. I think it's fantastic. I mix it up in a little palette. I don't. I normally just mix it in the gun, but that's a bad habit. But I'm mixing it in this little palette and putting it straight in the gun. And I've got a few models that I want to prime. And honestly, it was perfect. I had no mistakes. I had no clogging. One thing to be aware of, when you're using these thinner needles, you could run into dry tip and clogging easier, but you know, this Mobius 0.2, it's flying through it absolutely fine, and I had zero problems. Nice and responsive, nice and smooth. So, you know, most of the review videos are, they get it, they unbox it, they use it, they say it's great, you know, and that's that. But I wanted to do things slightly different, or at least slightly different to me anyway. I wanted to use it for at least a month, almost every day, just to see what it's like, because, you know, first impressions are great, but, you know, how does this work for us as miniature painters, prop painters, cosplay guys, anything like that? You know, is it good for us? The long and short of it is, yes, you know, if you don't want to watch any more of the video, and would I recommend this thing? Absolutely. I think it's fantastic. And for the price point, it is a ridiculously good bit of kit. So continuing with our priming and highlighting, this time I'm going to show you how I would apply it, like a zenithal or a volumetric highlight on a Space Marine, because if you collect Space Marines, I truly believe for your mental health, you should use an airbrush. And it goes down absolutely fine. It's the same sort of thinning ratio, but you could just adjust to, you know, see what works for you. But it's great, responsive, and I think it looks fantastic. So this is a resin 3D print bit of scenery, and I'm just again going in it with like some directional highlights to be cheap and lazy and make it look like a bit of weathered stone. I've been using this airbrush straight for about half an hour, no clogs. I then wanted to come through and just spray some metallics just to see, and this is Vallejo Metal Colour, and it goes down like an absolute dream. Value for money wise, these are sensational. I think if I have a look at the screen and the numbers, I think this is about 80, 90 quid, I think. I will confirm that and put it up on screen on Amazon, which is ridiculous. For what you get for the money, it is amazing. Really good bit of kit, really solid little workhorse. So this is just a little price comparison between sort of the major competitors as such. This isn't which one's better. This is just what works for your budget and what works for you, because all three of them are undeniably great airbrushes. So now I'm just coming in with some thinned down Pro Acrylic Blue, and I'm just lightly going over this Space Marine to try and just give it some interesting highlights. Again, it's roughly 50-50 with thinner. The airbrush is, you know, spraying it effortlessly, no clogs, no sputtering, just a reliable little workhorse. And that is exactly what I'm after. How good is that? Who doesn't want to do that? So I wanted to spray some white ink, which I probably should have done before the blue, but you know, this way you can see it much more clearly. And ink sometimes can be slightly tricky because it loves to dry on the needle. Again, I do thin it down slightly, but I had absolutely no problems with shooting this. And this is the 0.2. If you're new to airbrushing, thinking about airbrushing, I wouldn't start with a 0.2. I would go for a 0.3 or a 0.4, you know, somewhere in that ballpark, just to help alleviate any of the problems you get with dry tip and clogging, because the difference with how fine you can get a line is so negligible, and for most people, you'll never know. If you're an absolute guru with an airbrush, then you probably aren't watching this video anyway. And if I remember rightly, The Mobius comes in 0.2, 0.3, and I think you can just buy the parts, which are quite reasonable, to just interchange it between sizes, which is fantastic. So just coming back to our Space Marine, and we're just airbrushing a bit of contrast, picking up that white ink, and you can see it looks super effective for very, very little effort. So with this guy nearly done, this is what he looks like, which is about 5 minutes worth of airbrushing with the odd hairdryer in between coats. So cleaning, we've all got to do it, and at some point it will block, clog, or you just need to give it a nice deep clean. I just wanted to show this footage of me completely taking it apart and putting it back together, and how simple and easy it is. I think it took me 2 minutes with a little bit of a look at this in between. And you can feel it's built well. Nothing feels cheap. It all feels very well made, and it's super easy to put back together. And the box has a lovely little diagram on the back of it just to show you what parts what, where it goes, and how it's labelled, which is fantastic if you're not too confident or familiar with how airbrushes are made or operate. So the build quality is great. Nice and heavy, nothing feels cheap or like it's going to break on you. Trigger's nice and responsive. I do like this little cutout where you can sort of see the needle doing its thing. And I do like the design of this swirly back bit. So as I say, Gaahleri sent me this to try out. There was no, please say this, please say that, mention this, mention that. It's just my own observations. Since then, I've purchased a compressor and 2 airbrushes off Gaahleri out of my own pocket. One of the ones I've ordered is the classic, you know, that the pistol, like the trigger ones instead of the top. Amazing. I've only had that for a few weeks, and for when it comes to painting like prop things, it is so good. And it's got the swallowtail thing, which has the wider spray pattern. Makes spraying so much easier if you do cosplay props or costume props, anything like that, and you just want to get something done without using constant rattle cans. It is fantastic. Can I get a good light on this thing? So when I was spraying this up, if I was doing it with a small airbrush, it would have taken forever. And I wanted to test out a few turbo dark paints, turbo dork paints, and it was great. This was great. Went through the airbrush, fantastic. A little bit of thinning, you know, the standard stuff. I mean, the light makes it look a little bit dull. It is a bit more pingy than this, but it was such a joy to use an airbrush that had such a wide pattern that this was a breeze. I put it in a little spray booth and, you know, we were good to go. And it came out great. Thinking about doing more stuff like this, because I get asked about this sort of stuff. Oh, it is a work in progress, and I haven't had time. Work's been chaotic, but, you know, it's just very handy when you're doing things of this scale. Yeah, it just makes light work of it. And I know on this channel I'm normally painting miniatures, so this isn't necessarily applying, but for some of you it will. So thank you very much again for checking out the video. Below is a discount code from Gaahleri that you can use site-wide, but also there is an Amazon link as well to their store. I would say jump between the two, see where you can get the best possible deal for you. I do have a few more Gaahleri products that I will do reviews for over the next coming weeks. As I say, I got their, I think it's called a Seniair, which is the desktop compressor. That also comes with its own airbrush in the kit. So I'm tempted to do like a beginner's airbrush, you know, under 100 quid. This is what you can get, and this is what results you can achieve with that. If you're interested in seeing something like that, do let me know. I'll also be doing a video on the trigger airbrush with a fantail cut, because that thing is great. Really impressed by that, and I think I got the pack where it had 0.2, 0.5 and 0.7 needle, which is it's basically an amazing all-in-one package. And it has the swallowed fantail cut rather, so you can do those nice consistent thick lines as if you were, you know, as I say, doing props, or if you're doing much larger scale miniatures. It's incredible for terrain. I've got some nice little video footage to show you of how quick you can bust out terrain with that thing with amazing results.